Hello again, and welcome, and thank you for, turning up in a nice number for Mr. P. Chidambaram. I'm not surprised. I mean, we've just gone past the budget, and Mr. Chidambaram writes every week and more, not just one column, but much more. And his book, the name, The Watershed Year, that itself really got me looking into it. It is a collection of how many essays, Mr. Chidambaram? And thank you so much for being here. You have a mic here. Yes. So how many essays are in there? I tried to do a count, I couldn't.
This is the period between August 2022 and August 2023.
Correct.
Which is the year after 75th year of independence, which the BJP calls Amrit Kal. So it's the first year of a era that they have proclaimed for themselves. So let's accept that argument. Where will this era take us? Where will the present set of policies and course take India? That's why the tagline is, which way will India go? And which way will India go will largely depend upon what unfolded in what I call the watershed year, August 22 to August 23. So it has about 52 or 53 columns, one a week.
Correct.
In that 12 months.
Okay, so that's 52 essays with tantalizing headlines. Believe me, I don't know who put in those headlines. Are they the ones that were given in the newspapers themselves?
Yes. The same headlines. I don't pardon me, I don't allow anyone to change even a comma. Not even the editors of Indian Express.
Correct.
They have to, if a comma has been misplaced, they have to check with me before they replace the comma.
I'm sure they wouldn't dare. I mean, you who have written, 9 budgets. Is that correct? Is that number correct, Mr. Chidambaram? 9 budgets? Between
8 plus 1 interim budget, so that makes it 9.
Okay. So 9 budgets, not a full stop or comma out of place. And Mr. Chidambaram has written about that one year that he says is watershed. And I have to ask him then, after that 1 year was over, at the end of August 2023, after that, it's been almost 6 months. We are into the 6th month after.
That's right. But we had to put the columns together. I edited it for obvious errors. And then we had to divide them into sections. And publishing a book, it takes about 3 months.
Okay, so 6 months later, which way is or are the waters flowing? Do you have a distinct sense of direction about this government and the way it is going? And, has anything happened in the last 6 months that has changed the flow of the waters that you left it at in August 2023?
No, in the last 6 months has confirmed my apprehensions. You see, there are 2 things which determine the course of the nation. And I say this in the introduction. The introduction was written for the book.
Correct.
The first is the political system. Democracy. Which way is it going? And I end that section by saying, BJP aims to win power in 2024 and form a 3rd government under Mr. Narendra Modi. The results of state elections, whether in favor or against the BJP, will not affect the BJP's mission of capturing power at the center. If the BJP forms the central government for the 3rd time, even if it loses control over some state governments in the Hindi-speaking states, it will relentlessly pursue its agenda of creating a Hindu Rashtra. And I think that will decide which way will India will go in the remaining years of this century. The last 6 months has confirmed that they are relentlessly pursuing the agenda of a Hindu Rashtra. And I say this other determining factor, the second and the other determining factor, is the economic model that is followed in the country. I say we have a choice: trudge slowly on the familiar path or radically reset our economic policies to accelerate growth with the goal of abolishing abject poverty that afflicts nearly 20% of the population, creating millions of regular jobs, sharply reducing inequalities in wealth and income, and ensuring a more healthy, educated, and skilled people. I do not believe that the BJP has the leaders or the vision to reset India's economic policy. And the Prime Minister has made it clear that his policy is right. His policy matrix is correct. And he will push it more ambitiously and aggressively. This means, according to me, that inequalities will widen, the poor will be shortchanged, and no jobs will be created. Already unemployment is at 10%. Among graduates, it's 40%. Among graduates who reach the age of 34 or 35 years, it is still 10%. So 20 years or 18 years after you graduate, 10% will remain unemployed. So I think unless there is a reset of economic policy, this direction will not be reversed. So the last 6 months has confirmed my fear, my apprehension, that both the political course and the economic course are not good for the country.
If I may request, Mr. Chidambaram, would you be more comfortable if I held the mic?
I beg your pardon?
Would you be more comfortable if I held the mic?
No, I'm
You're
not.
okay? All right, because I would like you to refer to your book as much as possible. Okay, I understand that, you probably had, it was like you had pretty much foretold that this is how, you have told us exactly how it's going to be with the BJP on the path that it is. What you haven't told me, however, is whether you think there is any possibility of change of government, because that seems to be the only thing that may alter the course of economic gloom and doom, the picture that you are painting.
Every party lives on hope. Every party hopes to win an election. Who knows what will happen in 1999 to 2004. Mr. Bajpayee was in power.
True.
And they had the confidence to call an early election.
Correct.
But they lost the election.
Yeah, the
They
India
called it-
shining.
They called it India shining. But it recoiled on them. So who knows what the people will decide? I hope they will decide wisely. I hope they will decide knowing the choices before them. Today, the poor have been shortchanged. Let's not mince words on that. If 80 crore people have to be given free ration every month and for the next 5 years, the first charge on a family's income is food. The whole world knows that. The first charge on a family's income is food. But if 80 crore people have to be given free ration every month, I welcome them, but that's a clear signal that the poor are not able to afford food. If they are not able to afford food, it reflects in the private consumption. Every economic data shows that private consumption is declining.
True. But I would still like to, since I read your columns every week, and most of it was fairly familiar, I will tell you that on the 28th of January this year, I checked out the paper, and you had not said a word about the event of the month, and that is the Ram Mandir. Is it possible that with Ram Mandir and Ram Rajya, the economy might get a boost? What did you think of it? We haven't heard your thoughts on that.
No, my party has spoken on matters in which the party has spoken. I don't write because I can't depart from the party line. Not on this issue specifically, but on other issues where the party has spoken, I have a view. But I don't express my view when the party has spoken. Whether I agree with the party or not agree with the party, I keep that as a private thought to myself.
Oh.
Where the party has not spoken, I write. And there are many, many issues to write on. India throws up 3 subjects a week.
That's true. That's true.
There's no dearth of subjects at all.
Not at all, truly. And the variety that you write about, and it's phenomenal. In this collection of your essays, The Watershed Year, the book has been, the book clubs all his essays into challenges to democracy, muddled economy, governance failures, law and legal matters, and politics and political parties.
Yes.
Is there a particular essay or column that you think was prescient, that kind of predicted what was going to come after August 2023? Something that foretold the future?
No, there are many columns
Can I get some?
that will anticipate what's likely to happen after August 23.
Could you just pull this back?
See, for example,
Pull this back, this table. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
see, for example,
A little more.
my right to live without fear is about Bilkis Bano's famous statement.
Correct.
When the convicts were released on August 15. And she said, what I say is, in a few simple but heart-rending words, she summed up the situation of millions of poor, discriminated and oppressed citizens. Quote, give me back my right to live without fear. Now this I wrote on August 28, 2022, one of the first columns in the Watershed Year.
Correct.
But in the last 12 plus 6, 18 months, wherever I go, whoever I talk to, I find fear dominates their thinking. Fear dominates their entire existence. And I tell them, Tagore's, where the mind is without fear. But show me one person who can stand up and say, my mind is without fear. I can say anything. I can write anything. I can do anything which does not violate the law. Show me one person who can boldly say, I have no fear at all. And I can say anything. I can write anything.
Any hands going up there? That was a question for you. Yeah? Oh, that's a terrible commentary, isn't it?
It is. It
In
is.
Kolkata.
And this is not about this audience.
Yeah, absolutely
I've
not.
spoken to dozens of audiences.
Correct.
Not one business persons, lawyers, medical people, small-scale industry. Nobody has told me that I live without fear. I can say anything I like. I can speak anything I like. I can write anything that I like. I can produce any film. You can't produce a film in this country anymore until somebody seizes on one episode or one dialogue and rushes to the censor board or the court and says, ban this book, ban this film.
True.
Fear dominates India. And that is the antithesis of democracy. Where the mind is without fear, there alone there is democracy.
In contrast to Tagore, I'm suddenly reminded, I think, of a Alistair MacLean or a James Hadley Chase, which was titled, Fear is the Key. And that was so, it just came to my mind as he spoke about the whole issue of fear. You also left out one category, Mr. Chidambaram, writers, filmmakers, and so on, but you left out journalists.
I can give you any number of examples of journalists. I'll tell you one case. I was having dinner with a journalist. It was a winter night, and it's about 9:30. We were winding up dinner. And then he got a call saying, go back to your apartment. There's an OB van standing outside. The driver is carrying a script. You'll have to read that script into the camera. I said, why don't you tell them that get somebody else to read? Why should I break a dinner and go all the way to Noida, stand in the cold at 10 o'clock at night and read a prepared script? He said, I'm not married. I have a father and mother who live with me. I have an EMI to pay every month. How can I say no?
Many of us, I'm sure, have been through that experience.
You know, I don't want to mention names, the string of journalists who have lost their jobs.
True. Frightening.
Has any one of them been able to find a job?
I can take my name and tell you that we are pretty much unemployable at this moment. But to just get to more...
These are not nondescript names. These are famous anchors, famous journalists.
True.
You know them as well as I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just restricted to an organization, one organization. It's all over the place. But let's get to what is rocking Parliament the last couple of days. One of your headlines in this was rhetoric and reality. And over the last 24 or 48 hours, we've had so much of that chiaroscuro of black files and white paper and black paper flying all over the place. What is what? The BJP has, or rather the NDA has put out a white paper in which it has attacked you actually, saying that you left the economy in a mess back in 2014. The Congress has, of course, contradicted that with its own black paper. Does the truth lie somewhere in between, or what is the picture?
Please understand the 10 years of UPA. You can cite this metric, that data. Ultimately, the economists of the world, if you ask them to lay their finger on one number, not that it is a perfect number, the one number which sums up the health of the economy, 9 out of 10 will choose the GDP growth rate.
True.
Show me another number which is as representative of the whole economy as the GDP growth number. It takes within it poverty, growth, inflation, the real GDP growth number, adjusted for inflation, widening inequality. Everything is somehow or other reflected in the GDP growth. Exports, imports, FDI, exchange rate, everything goes into making that GDP growth number. Suppose you agree with me for the time being that the GDP growth number is the one universal data point, which is better than other data points. Show me any 5-year period, any 5-year period in India's 76-year history where we had an 8.5% average growth as we had in 2004 to 2009. Any 5-year period, including Mr. Modi's first 5 years or second 5 years. The highest 5-year period growth was in 2004 to 2009, 8.5%. Show me any 10-year period other than 2004 to 2014, where we had an average growth higher than 7.4. It is the UPA's 10-year period which had the highest 10-year growth period. In contrast, the NDA's 10-year period had an average growth of 5.8 or 5.9.
Okay.
If 2023-24 ends a little better, it will be 5.9. It's still under 6. There's no period under any Prime Minister, any Finance Minister, which had a 5-year growth higher than our growth or a 10-year growth higher than our growth. Number one. Number two, the only year in which we achieved the target of fiscal deficit and revenue deficit was 2007-8. The fiscal deficit was 2.5%, well below the 3%, and the revenue deficit was 1.1%. No year comes anywhere near close to that. Number three, and the last point, when we left the government, we left a growth rate of 6.4% in 2013-14. Now, show me any other period which matches this.
But you don't get everything right always, do you, Mr. Chidambaram?
Of course not.
At least the Prime Minister doesn't think so. And there's a clip of yours from a budget speech, I think, which is, being used by the BJP, and the Prime Minister actually reads your pristine English out, in which or where Mr. Chidambaram says, and I think it's in 2013, he says that we are, the size of our economy is 11th in the world, and in another 30 years, we will be 5th or 3rd. And I just saw this clip as I was, looking through his book as well. And what I saw next after this clip was the Prime Minister bitterly mocking Mr. Chidambaram that, look, they are so celebrating 11th position and saying that number 3 will be reached in 30 years. And we have reached number 3 in 10.
No, please understand.
Yes.
We have not reached the $5 trillion economy. We are talking about the $5 trillion economy. I did not say I predict that we will reach it. Please quote the entire sentence.
Okay.
There is a well-argued view. There is a well-argued view that India will reach the 5 trillion economy and become the 3rd largest economy in the world in so many years. It is not my view. It was the consensus view or the most articulated view at that time.
Okay.
This government said we will reach the 5 trillion economy in 23-24.
Okay.
The year will come
here.
to an end in another 40 days, 23-24. It was pushed back to 25-26. The Chief Economic Advisor, Anantha Nageshwaran, pushed it back to 27-28. And now, nobody is willing to take a bet that by 27-28 we will reach the 5 trillion economy. It's a moving goalpost.
True.
You keep moving the goalpost and then say, I'm there. It's possible that you will achieve in 15 years since he announced it,
Right.
or 16 years or 17 years. I'll be very happy. Why should I be unhappy if we reach it sooner? But when will we reach it? They are not clear. And when they come near the goalpost, they
They'll
move the
shift it.
goalpost.
Okay. But you have to tell me that haven't they got anything right with the economy?
Of course.
So
they
what are
have.
those things that they got right?
You see, the single-minded determination to get projects implemented is something which I appreciate. It's a single-minded determination.
For example? For example?
I'll tell you the example. For example, they determined that Aadhaar card will reach every Indian. Remember, Aadhaar was started by us.
Exactly.
The entire concept of Aadhaar was ours. Jan Dhan account is ours. It was called no frills account.
Manrega.
I'm giving one by one. Jan Dhan was ours, no frills account or zero balance account. They rechristened it as Jan Dhan. Aadhaar was our idea, the concept, the idea, the concept, the design, and we pushed it through two institutions, half of India by the Census Commissioner and half of India by Nandan Nilekani headed body.
Mm-hmm.
And M-Mobile was entirely expansion and entirely took place in our time. Most mobiles were issued in our time. Now, they appropriated JAM, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile.
So they appropriated
and
your
say,
jam.
They invented jam. Next they will claim credit for inventing the Kisan jam also. It is, they are implementing it better. I'm not denying that.
Okay.
Because there is a vast majority, there's an overwhelming majority. There is one party which is determining policy, one party which is selecting bureaucrats and driving the implementation. Their implementation is better. But not in all cases. For example, the cost overruns on projects. I've issued a statement yesterday comparing the 2025 metrics after the white paper came. It's not a white paper, it's a white lie paper. It's a white lies paper. I've compared 2025 metrics, UPA and NDA, and I've shown in all but two metrics we are better than the, but I must admit that in some cases their implementation is better. I concede that.
Okay. Okay.
Why should I be unhappy if the government is able to implement it better?
I'm going to, reach out to you guys and ask if you all have questions. If you don't, I have 2 pages of it. Are there any questions? Then, I will accordingly ask him my last couple. You have a question. Anybody else? Anybody else? 1, 2. Okay, so that's 2. No, hold on. I got a couple of questions too before we end. So I want some really quick responses on this. There is another title in your book, which is Rebuff to Centralism. I started rebuff to Centralism. And I was reading it with great enthusiasm, expecting that it will be a scathing attack on the center by the finance minister of Tamil Nadu. We all remember it. Do you all remember? How many of you remember the finance minister of Tamil Nadu really attacking, the way the center is squeezing funds to the states that are run by opposition governments. So the finance minister there, I'm not 100% sure he still is, he had written the scathing article. But no, don't worry about it, because that was not there. I looked for it, and I may have missed it, but what I'd like to also know from you, since you are, pretty much the southern part of India, is, do you think the way the situation is today and the way the Prime Minister himself brought up the issue in Parliament, is North-South divide a real issue? Or is it something that the BJP is tom-tomming? Or is it something that the Congress is responsible for and the BJP is now using it as a divisive measure? Tell me.
You see, there is no south-north divide.
Okay.
But there is good reason to argue that the South is being discriminated against in some matters. Now, in a federal country, why should a state not stand up and say, we are being discriminated? To which the answer of the finance minister is, Finance Commission devolves grants. I don't have the power to interfere with that. But who's talking about the Finance Commission grants? Finance Commission has progressively reduced the share of each southern state because the southern states are growing at a faster rate. See, the way the Finance Commission recommendations are structured and devised is, it is a distance from the center. If this is the point, a state is more distant from the center, it is a less developed state. Therefore, it deserves more funds, I agree, and therefore it should be given more funds. A state that is growing at a faster pace and is more developed loses funds. Now, we have to question that basis as the sole basis for devolution of funds by the Finance Commission, but we can't complain against the central government for that. We have to complain to the next Finance Commission. It is now being constituted under Dr. Arvind Panagriya. They will complain. But that's not the only devolution of funds. See, what the Finance Minister did not say is, that is not the only devolution of funds. There are grants, both grants in aid of revenue deficit and special grants. There is disaster relief fund. There are central schemes which are allocated. I like her, I allocate. I don't like you, I don't allocate, or they discriminate. So the central schemes. And above all, there is borrowing. There is borrowing. That is the biggest source of income for many states. And for every rupee that a state wants to borrow, it must get the permission of the central government. If the state, which is not in tune with the center, asks for borrowing, you cut their borrowing. If they ask for 20,000 crore borrowing, you say, sorry, for a reason A, B, I'll give you only 15,000 crore borrowing. To that extent, the state's budget is to be trimmed, expenditure is to be trimmed. So the Finance Minister speaks about the Finance Commission grants. We are not protesting to the center on the Finance Commission grants. We are protesting on all other avenues of devolution.
Okay.
And there's no answer to that.
Okay, all this is very familiar to us in West Bengal because we have Monideepa Banerjie, our own chief minister.
She has been denied Maganrega funds.
Correct.
She has been denied disaster relief funds. And I think she's also complained about some special schemes where the allocation is poor or
True.
less than desirable.
True. So certainly complex issues over there. And I just hope it doesn't lead to a division because there is so much talk of it in the air.
There's no division. I'm standing here.
Correct.
In eastern India. I'm from southern India. And I certainly don't want India to be divided.
Correct.
And I certainly don't want India to split into two or more nations. I love India. I'm proud of India. I want India to be one. But I want that India to be fair and just to all limbs of India.
I'm succumbing to temptation. I'm going to take like maybe 2 more minutes. Is that completely okay? Because you've just gone on about India, India, India. And I have to ask you, what do you think about the prospects of India, which is, of course, the alliance, the opposition alliance?
I'm not part of the National Alliance Negotiating Committee. It's headed by my colleague, Mr. Mukul Vasnik, and there are other leaders. I'm not part of that committee, nor am I part of the India Alliance meetings. So my information is second-hand or sometimes even third-hand. Therefore, I can't really comment. I wish state-specific parties, and most parties in this country are confined to one state. and that state-specific parties will realize that if there is no opposition, and if Mr. Modi and his machinery wins the election, it will cause an existential crisis to the state-specific parties.
Last question, sir. Will you please tell us what your column tomorrow is going to be about?
Oh, it's about the budget that was presented on February 1, and I wrote this on 3rd or 4th February, and it will appear now this week. I had 12 claims that she made in her budget, and I showed that the facts were contrary. For want of space, I had to cut it to 9 claims. I've called it bullhorn economics.
Bullhorn economics.
Bullhorn economics. So you proclaim, you declare using a bullhorn so that people can hear. But I end with the non-statutory warning: bullhorn can make people deaf.
And I can't miss the double entendre, Mr. Chidambaram. Bullhorn and some other unparliamentary stuff just came into my mind. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm glad I took those 2 extra questions. I want some, if, Anjum, I don't know, are your guests waiting or?
A quick question and a quick answer.
Okay, let's do.
Sir, what is your view? Sir, this side. Sir, what is your view on Gyanvapi?
On what?
Gyanvapi?
What is he saying?
Gyanvapi, the whole Gyanvapi
Gyanvapi.
controversy.
It is, there's the mosque.
Correct.
The mosque in
Varanasi.
Varanasi.
That is now also a temple.
Now that's a matter in court.
That's true.
I believe that the Places of Worship Act will strictly apply to all places of worship except Ayodhya. That's what the act says. And the idea of passing that act was that no more dispute should be raised about the religious character of a place of worship. But they are trying to get around that injunction by inventive legal arguments that what is the religious character can be investigated. I mean, I don't want to comment. It will travel to the Supreme Court. But the idea behind that act was, except Ayodhya, which is the exception in the act, in no other case should the religious character of the place of worship be questioned or reopened. That was the idea, and I firmly believe that idea. People have to accept the fact, right or wrong, history has happened.
Thank you. Last, the very last. I can
2
see
very short
Anjum
questions.
shooting
Very short
daggers
questions.
at me.
Sir, the first question would be that the opposition has been saying in the parliament that presently India's debt is somewhat around 164 lakh crore. So if it continues in this path, could India be in a situation that Sri Lanka was in that same debt trap? And secondly, since you were instrumental...
What is this noise?
can I go on?
There's some audio
What
issue.
is this audio?
I'm sorry, there's some audio coming in, some alien audio. Could we fix it, please?
Yes, what is
Thank
your
you.
question?
Yes, sir.
Question.
So yeah.
10
question.
seconds, 5 seconds.
So, too short. The first is India supposedly is in a debt of 164 lakh crore. So if it continues in this path, can India be in a situation that Sri Lanka was in that same debt trap? And secondly, sir, since you were instrumental in the in the implementation of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, if Congress comes to power tomorrow, which provisions of it would you want to change, since the opposition has been saying that the ED is being used politically? Thank you.
Let's go with the second. The first you can...
PMLA.
Yes.
On the first question, our debt to GDP ratio, central government debt to GDP ratio, this year will be about 58%. If you add the state's debt, it goes beyond 80%. But I don't think that we are in a situation like Sri Lanka. That is a warning, a neighborly warning, let's say. We have to be careful, but they have declared a slide path to control the fiscal deficit, which is the borrowing. Fiscal deficit equals borrowing. So if they taper down the fiscal deficit and they grow at 6.5%, 7%, we are not in danger. But if our growth rate slides, dips below 6%, and if the debt grows at say 4 or 5% a year, we are nearing the danger mark. But we are not going to go the way of Sri Lanka.
Thank God.
The second question is about PMLA. We didn't implement the PMLA willingly. Please remember, the PMLA Act was passed in 2002. It received the assent of the President in 2003. For whatever reason, that government did not notify the Act. When we came to our office, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, which is a worldwide body to which we are a member, exerted enormous pressure, notify the Act. There were clamor in Parliament, why are you not notifying the Act? So we had to notify the Act, but I did make 2 amendments which lessen the rigor of the provision. I made the offence non-cognizable. I made the offence non-cognizable, and I made one other amendment, and we notified the Act. But even when I notified the Act, I did not anticipate, and I confess, that even this Act can be weaponized. Who thought a law can be weaponized? Now every law is being weaponized. You saw the MP who's announced he will no longer contest an election. True. The MP from Andhra Pradesh, Galla, who owns that Amaron battery, which is a very successful business. He said, I'm not going to contest election. Every law has been weaponized. I have to take 70 approvals for any business decision, and every department I go thinks that its law or its rule is a weapon. And I have to face 70 guns every time I want to run a business. But we did not know that the PMLA will be weaponized. But we have made it clear that if we come to power, PMLA will be repealed. But since FATF is a member, an exchange of information on financial information is vital to our country, our interest, we will make a new PMLA law which is fair, just and reasonable.
Lovely. So thank you very much. That was is this breaking news? That's what we are all looking for all the time. You've already said it in the past.
I don't know where I said it, but I've said it. Our manifesto will have that promise.
Okay, who knows? You may have asked a question and elicited breaking news. Thank you, Mr. Chidambaram.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. We have run madly out of time. Thank you, all of you, for being such a patient audience. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you. Yes.